Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 43rd installment in our virtual reading series. That is right, we are in the quadfecta of the 40th series of readings. I am your marketing and communications director at CavanKerry Press, Dimitri Reyes, and it is my joy to be bringing you this wonderful evening of three incredible authors. You'll be hearing from Baron Wormser, who means so much to CavanKerry Press, and in terms of having most of our books guided to completion. Peacock, who has been such a big support of this press since its inception, which, by the way, folks, this is also the 26th anniversary of CavanKerry Press in existence tonight. We just went a whole year of 20 of our 25th anniversary, and now we're stepping into year 26. And what a great way to celebrate 26 with the next book of our founder, Joan Cusack Handler, Lights and Cold Rooms, a wonderful, wonderful memoir. Psychologist reflects on family, aging, love, and loss. There's a beautiful memoir in there, and there's also some poems in there too. So if you haven't ordered that book yet, please, you'll see in our chat that there will be a link in order to purchase that. Before we go forward into the night, I am going to give you a bit of an idea of the run of show. We will start with a quick land acknowledgement by our social media coordinator, Tamara Akwesi Coleman. Afterwards, we will be hearing from Baron, who will read from his work, Molly, who will read from her work, and then the queen of the evening, Joan Cusack Handler, will be reading from her memoir. Afterwards, we'll be taking a quick maybe 10-15 minutes to have a conversation about different connections that we've been making throughout not only the course of the evening, but the course of their careers. They have a lot of history together. So it's going to be amazing to see how we contain this in a Q&A. If you have anything on your mind, if you have any questions, if you thought anything you heard was outstanding, please put it down in the chat because our authors will get the chat after the reading, and then they could see all the great praise they got. And you can also put the questions there because I will make sure that your questions are heard this evening. So without further ado, before we go on to the rest of the night, I will be zooming in Tamara.
Hello, y'all. So my name is Tamara Alkaisi Coleman. I am the social media coordinator for CavanKerry Press. A quick visual description. Oh, okay. If we could mute, so sorry. I am a late 20s Middle Eastern woman with black curly hair. I'm also wearing my keffiyeh. And it's my pleasure to welcome you into the latest of CavanKerry series of virtual readings, celebrating our authors and friends of the press. Happy 26th birthday, CavanKerry. Before the reading begins, we want to take a moment to acknowledge that the land that we occupy in Bergen County, New Jersey, belongs to the Munsee Lenape people. We honor their history. We cannot function in our work as arts activists nor offer a safe space for all writers without understanding the struggle for Indigenous rights. And we will add to the chat a map of native lands and for which you can identify which land you occupy, and also links to a few resources for you to learn and or offer your support. And lastly, we join arts organizations across the country in celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, which starts on September 15th, honoring the voices, stories, and traditions of of Hispanic and Latina communities. At CavanKerry Press, we recognize the power of literature to preserve culture, confront inequities, and inspire connection, especially in this moment when anti-immigration sentiment and the ongoing harms of ICE enforcement weigh heavily on our communities. It is essential to uplift and support Latina writers whose work continues to enrich our literary landscape and affirm our shared humanity. We have always made it our business to care for the very people whose well-beings is most under threat, and we will continue that vital work of our publishing and programming in order to foster a safe and welcoming environment for all writers. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to our marketing and communications director, Dimitri Reyes, to introduce tonight's readers. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Tamara, for that. So everyone on this stream, are you ready? Everyone on Facebook, are you ready? Okay, let's dig in for this evening. So, our first reader up will be the one and only Baron Wormser, who is an author of many books, many books, including poetry, fiction, and a memoir, The Road Washes Out in Spring, a poet's memoir of living off the grid, reissued in 2023 by Brandeis University Press. In 2026, Slant Books will publish his 11th book of poetry, James Baldwin, Smoking a Cigarette, and Other Poems. Everyone, here is Baron Wormser.
Thank you, Dimitri. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here tonight with Molly and with Joan. I go way back with Joan to the Frost Place, and I remember her telling me when she had this idea to start a press, and I'd heard other people tell me they were starting presses, and it was about the same as they're going to buy a string of race horses. Wasn't going to happen. But of course, Joan did it. Not only that, she also has been a remarkable writer. I had connection with this manuscript, and it's a book that stayed with me. There are many facets to it. I'm sure Joan will tell us some, but in terms of the story it tells about Joan's mother, sister, and Joan, um, it's a remarkable story. It's a haunting story, and it's a very real story, which anybody who knows Joan's work would expect. She's not someone who backs off, which brings me to what I'm going to read tonight. I didn't visually describe myself. I'm an old Jewish guy with white hair. Um, Joan's the book I'm going to read from is a book of short stories about poets. Um, and it's the sort of book you tell people and they go, "What?" And that was pretty much the response I got when I took it out to the world. But I told Joan, and Joan said, "Hey, sounds like it's up our alley. Let's do it." And she did. They did a beautiful job, of course, the way CavanKerry does with all their books. So I'm going to read a couple pages from this. And again, all honor to you, Joan, for what you've done as a writer, a poet, and a publisher and editor. Yeah. You are the woman. Okay, this is from the first story in the book. This is the book, by the way. And so it's 10 different poets. And the first is William Blake, born 1757. So this is someone talking about William Blake. Yes, I need glasses. I rise before the sun does. Each morning I sit on the edge of the bed with my feet planted on the unlovely linoleum floor. And I say slowly, but quite distinctly to the darkness, "Sweet joy befall thee." I feel like an actor speaking the first words of a play, except my life is no play, nor does my soul need an audience. What I do need is confidence. I built my life up from very shaky ground. And William Blake, the man who wrote that line, has been a godsend to me. The human voice that speaks a poem rises from a powerful word. We take it for granted, but a voice is an advent of spirit. I know from attending numerous churches and during my haphazard childhood that the joy that preachers trumpet comes in a box with grievous dimensions. Their salvation is a machine of wrath. Take your back on hell so you can go to heaven. The joy I invoke can go where it chooses. because it resides in our being alive. The joy I invoke is Blake's Jerusalem, the city we can build each day through kindness. The most sublime act is to set another before you. No one has ever called the place where I work sublime, so I need that word too. Those words I speak do not constitute a prayer. They are somewhere between an announcement and a wish. I know if left to its own devices, my daily mind will kick in about whether I remember to get cat food or whether my beater of a car will start or whether I will be walking down the street and the pain of my wondering who my parents were will hit me out of nowhere like quiet lightning, and I will tingle with grief. Repeating that line of poetry takes me to my soul's desire. Whatever I am to myself, to others, spiritualist, would-be poet, wandering orphan, I reside on the same earth that my master, William Blake, once walked on. He saw the sky and sun that I see. He knew they were spiritual emanations. He recognized the glory that refutes despair and dwarfs knowledge. Despair has been near my heart forever. I don't use the word lightly. To study something, the sky or the sun or a lamb or a housefly, in the way that our scientific world likes to study things, is to sever your heart from your mind. The people with whom are studied endlessly. Questions fly from educated mouths. How did they get to be this way? What pills could make them better? What is better? What do their brains look like? It's easy to forget that those modest brains belong to people. It's easy to forget that those objective scientists are people themselves. Before we do anything with anything, we should exalt that it exists. The belief that everything is frightens me. When human beings start to explain, they reduce eternity to a shoe size. Eternity, to quote Blake, is in love with the productions of time, not the explanations of time. Children come to recognize that an explanation delivered in the voice of authority is a lie. I know I did when a foster parent explained to me why I had to be going to another house next week when I had barely gotten used to being in the house I was in. Those reasons adults trot out are convenient ways to silence the large and small questions a child raises. Practicality cannot be bothered. The child looking up at the harried adult who cannot make ends meet and has forgotten or never known what might be, senses what lies within an explanation. The voice that the child hears is truly half-hearted. It is only part of a heart, not a whole one. I am glad to work with, quote, slow people because they insist on asking the large and small questions. They will ask with great curiosity, what is for lunch? And then they will wonder aloud as we amble down the hall toward the day room. And the sun came up today. What explanation do I have for them? Because it loves you, I say. Women are happy to accept fondness. Everything possible is to believe, to be believed is an image of truth. That's from Blake. I know these slow people know that. Okay, I'm just going to read a little more. I know too that the chimney sweeps in Blake's London also rose early. from one darkness to another as they made their way from the sleep that was their only refuge, though I cringed to think of their nightmares, into the narrow, suffocating, smoky 5, 6, 7 year olds. They lived to be used up as if they were wood and coal. How fallen a world it is that treats flesh as if it were a material, that humbles beauty and applauds blindness. Slavery changes its coats of fashion, but it swears the same hard, necessitous oaths. Its easy words remain fanatical, its consolations murderous. Work will make us free, honor the rod that beats you, die for the honor of a nation. Those common preening lies angered Blake, but he clung to his vision. While I dress and attend to Tiger, Los, and Crystal, those are cats she's named after, Blake figures, who are milling around my legs and meowing, I often think of Blake's poem. Sometimes I say a stanza to myself, so I'm going to quote from William Blake now and sign off. And, Jeff, never say enough about what you've done in so many different ways. But this stanza is for you since you made this possible. From William Blake. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Thanks so much to everybody who has made this evening possible.
Wow, Baron, that was a great ending. And thank you because you're also a reason that we're making tonight possible. So thank you so much for your reading this evening as well. I'll beam you out for now and then I'll bring you back in later for the chat. Thank you so much. Okay, all right. Here we are, the magic of poetry, listening to one another and thinking about how our work explores that emotional and psychological landscapes of everyday life, something that was and is Joan's vision for this press, and it's something that we continue, and it's something that's going to be exemplified throughout the evening, especially with our next reader, Molly Peacock, whose latest poetry collection is The Widow's Crayon Box by W. W. Norton, author of 8 collections and co-founder of Poetry in Motion on New York subways and buses. Peacock has served as poet in residence at the American Poets Corner and Poetry Society of America president. Her work is widely anthologized, including in a century of poems from The New Yorker. Among her honors are Danforth, Ingram Merrill, National Endowment for the Arts, Citizens and Scholars, and Leon Levy Center fellowships. This year, she is a Stell Fox Fellow at Dickinson College. She teaches at 92 Street Y. Peacock is the author of 2 biographies, The Paper Garden and Flower Diary. Everyone, here is Molly Peacock.
It's wonderful to be here celebrating Joan Handler's book, a book that I've read a number of drafts of, and am just thrilled that it has transformed, transmogrified, and morphed into the magnificent book that we're celebrating this evening. Just a visual description. I am a 78-year-old white woman with a cute gray haircut, big tortoiseshell glasses, chunky jewelry, and a black t-shirt. And I am speaking to you very gratefully from the land, from Toronto, Canada, the land of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. I'm going to read 3 poems, and in between, I'm going to chat a little bit more about my relationship with Joan Handler, which is older than the relationship that she has to CavanKerry Press. So we're celebrating CavanKerry's 26th birthday, and I'm celebrating possibly 36 years of knowing Joan Handler, and I'll stop there and read two poems from the Widow's Crayon Box, and then a newer poem. The first poem is called Widow in Kitchen with Yellow Apple. You burst through the door, wheeling your red Swiss Army suitcase. How had you packed all you needed in that for 10 months? And I, in my stained yoga pants, stood gaping with delight, my little red paring knife in one hand and a yellow apple in the other. You're home, I smiled, my face stretching so wide I'd forgotten skin could be so elastic. And as you bumbled with your suitcase, had you brought me a present? Your beard needed a trim. You looked up and said, Yellow? I only buy yellow apples now, I almost said, but instead chirped, It's time for the new crop of Honey Crisps. Red, round. I'll buy you some new ones, I said, looking in your pain-free face, tired from a journey, but exhilarated to be home, eyes bright green. We hadn't even kissed yet. It was Saturday, and I had to stick my hair in a band and grab my jacket, or there would be nothing left at the farmer's market. So I almost stumbled into you in my rush to supply your wants, slightly turning my ankle against the wheel of your red Swiss Army suitcase, disappearing against the door, so securely locked. Big white rectangle shut. You'd been so real. Each hair of your beard glistened with the outside's cold air. The hair on your knuckles, gripping the black handle, curled in little squiggles as if drawn by a fine line marker. I saw them, the point of my red paring knife poised at the yellow peel. You'd been so real. So that's the second to the last poem in the Widow's Crayon Box, which has a premise. Not all books of poems do, but the premise is that I have found widowhood not to have its emotions represented by the basic 8-color Crayola box. I find widowhood's emotions to be represented by the big box of 152. And that is something that I have a great deal of common with Joan Handler, who is a psychologist poet. And we have had far-ranging psychological conversations in the context of poetry for heading toward our half-century mark. And it's such a joy to be with a poet who experiences life with such multi-leveled perceptions. One of the things that we've talked about over time is dreams and how dreams can function in poetry. I should say that Joan and I met just after I think she got her MFA degree from NYU. She was in that period of having finished a degree, but then being absolutely on her own, trying to find not her graduate school poetry, but her truly adult embrace of poetry and her own line and what that was going to be. And we embarked on many conversations as she formed the line of her work, an expansive line, often broken across the page, something embracing, large, and emotional. So I'm going to read another poem from the Widow's Crayon Box called The Fawn, and it's about a dream, and it's about coming out of a kind of that initial state of loss. And it's about an animal, the fawn. From a waking world, it's hard to go dreamside, but that's how it was, where inside met outside at once. I slept on a platform of a three-walled house that opened to the woods. I was fast asleep inside my sleep. Morning. I felt only the light. My eyes were closed. And there was something else, raspy but soft, moist against my cheek. The lapping tongue of a fawn. The fawn had settled beside my bedclothes. When I opened my eyes in this dream of waking I could only have had when asleep, it was dawn. The fawn's nose was black and wet, its tongue a forest pink. It filled me with a speckled softness. You'd been dead 9 months. My new life licked at me. I was just as old as I am now in the dream. But I had a child thought as I stared into the liquid eyes of the deer. It's talking just to me, not in words, but in understanding. Neither the deer nor I were yet standing. So those are 2 poems from the Widow's Crayon Box, one that evokes childhood in the end. And I just want to stop here and say how honored I am to be reading with Baron Wormser, who read poems about childhood. And it's something that connects Joan Cusack Handler, Baron, and myself, a concern with childhood, the childhood as the source of our poetry, even when it's very quiet, even if the poems don't appear to grow from our childhood, that base or that, I don't know, childhood volcano is present there in our work and something that we share. And it was wonderful to hear Baron's poems and be here with him this evening. Because of that, Joan Handler's aesthetic is informed by her Irish heritage, and her Irish heritage informs CavanKerry. Cavan and Kerry. CavanKerry is made from the names of the 2 counties in Ireland that her parents are from. And the sense of juiciness in her work, I think, also is from that great Irish literary tradition. And I've always been grateful to watch her work unfold from her own heritage, unabashedly from her own life. She's a champion of memoir in verse and a champion of memoir in prose. And we're celebrating a prose book this evening, a memoir and a meditation. In the great tradition of Montaigne, on late life, with poems inside. And it's a joy as a poet to be able to read prose where I encounter poetry. So I'm going to finish with a poem called Adult Life. Many of us become parent figures for one another. You can have a contemporary parent figure. They're everywhere. Role models are everywhere. And Joan has been a role model for many, and especially because she is both a writer and the creator of a now distinguished press. I think of her in the tradition of Virginia Woolf, who created Hogarth Press with her husband and who published her friends and herself. Her friend T.S. Eliot, herself, her own books. And it's a very wide concept of a publishing house. And what CavanKerry has embraced and now is embracing in new hands as it goes on. And thank you, Dimitri, Gabe, and Tamara, for all of your hard work for this press. So now I'm going to read a little poem called Adult Life. On the same black rubber conveyor belt where my hasty young self dumped her groceries, bruising them into plastic bags, a small, thin, old man placed his fruit and vegetables. His bell pepper, radishes, eggplant, and grapes seemed to breathe themselves back into being, overcoming being severed, packed, crated, and shipped. His arranging touch seemed to restore their heartbeats. And he brought a wicker basket for them, a thing that would decompose eventually, unlike my plastic bags, sulking in a dump for 5 decades now. After he posed the produce on the wet belt, and later, I imagined, in a bowl, then on a wooden cutting board ready for a black pan, their peelings would decompose too. I absorbed his composition, his still life, beginning the assemblage of my truly adult life. He was my stranger, never again seen, a deep, brief parent who vanished yet remains inside me as I've slowly assembled the elements of how I try to live. Thanks so much.
My goodness. Thank you so much, Molly. I told you, everyone, there was going to be so many historical caveats and adages in here. This is an amazing thing to hear, and I loved your work. Thank you. We will zoom you out for one short moment, and then after Joan's reading, we'll bring you back on for the conversation. Thank you. Okay, so. Everyone, you're with us? Excellent. Um, in the comments, just as a reminder, if you aren't following us on social media, if you're not following us on YouTube, we have all of our recordings that we've started doing since early 2020 on our YouTube channel. So we will be sure to put that in the chat. We'll also put links so you can look more into Baron Wormser, as well as The Widow's Crayon that Molly was able to read from, and also where you could find Lights in Cold Rooms if you don't have this memoir yet. You are definitely going to want to read it. As with every CavanKerry Press book, if you hold it, it has that velvety finish. It has our wonderful French flaps that Joan has been a champion for over the years. And it's just such a great book to hold in your hands. I actually wrote her this weekend and I was like, well, I read your book when we were going over marketing things together, but I had to spend time with it again this weekend because there's just something about, and all of us readers here, holding the book in person and reading it as something that is actually a physical copy, especially when it's made with such care as it is, like it is with CavanKerry Press. But enough about this being an HSN commercial. We're all here for Joan this evening. So let's give it up for Joan. I'm going to read her bio, and then we'll get into the queen of CavanKerry Press, the founder, the magician that created this press, Joan Cusack Handler, who is a poet, memoirist, and psychologist. She has published 3 verse memoirs, Glorious, The Red Canoe, Love in Its Making, and Orphans, and 1 prose memoir, Confessions of Joan the Tall. With Gabriel Cleveland, she co-edited Places We Return To, an anthology of selections from the first 100 books published by CavanKerry Press, the press she founded in 2000 and continues to serve as publisher. Her poems are widely published and have received awards from Boston Review and 5 Pushcart nominations. She is also the author of the PsychologyToday.com series of art and science and the author of the newest book, Lights in Cold Rooms, A Psychologist Reflects on Family, Aging, Love, and Loss. Everyone, please welcome Joan Cusack Handler.
Okay. This is an amazing evening. It's a very celebratory, basically I'm reading tonight with my poetry godparents, CavanKerry's poetry godparents. What strikes me most about Molly and Baron is their incredible generosity to a writer. Molly pointed out to me before that my strap was showing. One of the things that she said to me during one of our sessions was, you're always trying you're always trying to get away from the fact that your strap is showing. Show it. Show it. So I have done that. I have so many years with the friendship of Molly and Baron. They've taught me everything I know about poetry, everything I know about sounds like a cliche at this point, about finding my own voice. David, my son is David, Baron said to me one time, Joan, what's your relation with the left margin? I said, oh, well, you start a poem there and you come back at the end of a line and you keep on going back to the left margin. That's how poetry is presented. He said, I think there are left margin poets. And he said, I think I am one. He said, but I think you are I don't know if you said left margin poet, but you opened up a door for me that has included such incredible pleasure in opening up the line and, in effect, taking the feeling and transporting it into different sections of the page in order to deepen the emotional experience of the poem. I love it. I love you. I love you, Molly. I could not have asked for more loving, smart, and generous friends, mentors, godparents of our lovely CavanKerry Press. They have helped me along the way in spades. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to read pieces of Lights in Cold Rooms. Just background about the book. Basically, I was shortly after the onslaught of COVID, I found myself depressed. I knew what the symptoms were. I had spent a lot of time working with people through depression, and I wanted to find a therapist to work with when I was in this depression. There was no such thing because we were in quarantine. And so there were no professionals working. There was no video appointments. None of that had emerged. And so I was on my own to bring myself out of this depression. And so I ended up doing what I always do with writing. I start somewhere on an envelope, on a napkin, on whatever piece of paper I can jot down some thoughts on. And that evolved into this book. It's as true as I could make it. And my life has been dedicated to truth. So the first section of the book is entitled The Body, the Culprit. The worst day. My battle with my body began in early childhood, when I noticed I was different from the other kids. Always in a rush, my legs seemed to fly out from under me, leaping many inches off the graph for what was normal for a girl my age. Actually, I need a little more light. The worst day of my life, thank you very much, was the first day of 6th grade with Sister Mary Lucille announcing that we were going to be measured and weighed. My weight didn't bother me. I was quite thin. But my height terrified me. My belly boiled and sweat poured down my neck and chest. I jumped up from my desk, blurting out, "I need to go to the girls' room," and ran out of the room. It took forever and my breath to slow enough for me to walk shakily back to the classroom. "Joan, dear, we've reached the last of the C's, so it's your turn," Sister said. I don't know how I walked to the front. My vision tunneled and my whole body was trembling. Sister's voice sang out, "Nice and straight, dear," while she gently pinned my shoulders back and announced in the loudest voice I'd ever heard, "Joan Cusack, 5 feet 11 and a half inches." I was 11 years old. Looming, Jolly Green Giant, Beanstalk, Stretch. I was a butt of every bully's joke as I walked to school or the store. I especially hated trips to the grocer's. And in a family of 6, there were many, always in the afternoon between school and supper. The boys lurked, particularly in the alleyways between the rows of houses, on the lookout for someone to laugh and torture. My brother Sonny, a year older than me, was often with them. My nemesis all my young life, his favorite taunts were switching off the lights in the cellar when he knew I was down there folding laundry, putting the Cheerios box between us during breakfast so he didn't have to see my face, and laughing at my small breasts, hollering, "Carpenter's dream, flat as a board," and 2 peas on an ironing board. As I approached the alley between the 2 corner houses, the loudest boy would call out, "Hey, Stretch, how's the weather up there?" Followed by the rest of the pack chanting, "Yeah, how's the weather up there?" Most days I walked straight ahead as if I didn't even hear them. But sometimes I struck back, gathering my courage and calling, "Just fine, thank you." I loved those moments. I felt strong and unafraid, even when I was scared that I was indeed a giant who would never stop growing. I refused to stoop over to reduce my height. Though my belly scalded with shame, I pretended I didn't hear the insults and walked straighter, with conviction that spelled pride to the youngest neighborhood kids who watched from their yards. I never let anyone know how embarrassed I was. Even my mother, though she clearly surmised that I was being tortured again. She insisted that the boys were jealous of me and my height was something to be proud of. I knew that wasn't true, and though I tried to tell her, she was relentless. Sonny continued to torment me, but I said nothing. Our older sister, Catherine, also hated being tall. She was 4 years older and 3 years shorter, and she probably had already reached her full height. I couldn't understand why she complained about her height to me. It felt mean, but I remained silent, saying nothing to my girlfriends, parents, teachers. No one knew how I felt. At times, even me. I envy the nomad, moving further and further from home. Morphing. In time, height became something to be proud of, as Mom had insisted. From feeling ugly and disgusting during my early years, I came to understand that what could be horrible in kids' cycles could morph into beauty in the adult world. In a matter of a year or two, I went from having no boys interested in me, even having to get a blind date for both my high school and college proms, to having as many guys as I wanted. It was a transformation that reshaped not only how others saw me, but more importantly, how I saw myself. A profound gift. I was suddenly in charge, desired, attractive. Along with two college girlfriends, Bridget and Joan, I started going to Friday night adult dances down on 86th Street in Manhattan's Germantown, which was known for its church and club-sponsored social events for immigrant, German, and Scandinavian men and women anxious to meet Americans. It was there that joy exploded. As the tall girls department didn't tend to stock stylish clothes, Mom took it upon herself to start making my clothes worthy of my Friday nights out. And she was good at it. Our first step was to go to Macy's and pick out a pattern and fabric, a magenta turquoise or navy taffeta, or my two favorites, white pot de soie, black velvet, or burgundy matelassé. Then shortly before Mom cut out the dress, I'd begin to redesign it. Let's make angel sleeves that swish as I walk. Or maybe we could change this ballet neck to a V. Or how about adding a toss of emerald silk as a shawl? Extra taffeta to the navy tulip dress to emphasize my waist. It was endless. Me designing and Mom altering. Amazing for a person who was depressed herself and often cranky or worse. She never lost her cool or made me feel bad for doubling her work. She never insisted I'd be satisfied with the original pattern. Instead, she was my willing, even eager partner, sharing her own ideas about highlighting a sleeve or adding a jacket to complete a look. We were in heaven. Two neophyte designers giving birth to our just conceived creation. She surprised me once with the voluminous black velvet shawl to complete the white strapless pot de soie. It was perfect. I loved it. She loved it. I felt myself walking differently, gliding almost, and I was ready. My first adult dance. The dance hall was decorated with green velvet, the color of Christmas and the giant oak that kept watch over our beach when I was a girl. Floor-to-ceiling drapes and countless chairs and small tables covered with pristine white cloths. At the center of each table were 4 or 5 yellow tea roses in thin glass vases. Gold sconces hung from the walls behind a stage graced with dark-haired, gorgeous men tuning violins, cellos, and a piano. I did my best to ignore the rush of butterflies that filled my belly and chest as I approached the table I shared with Bridget and Joan, somehow managing to walk straight. After a few steps, I glided, truly. And as I had hoped, lots of men asked me to dance. Many were Scandinavian and comfortable around tall women. They eagerly told me how beautiful I was and how much they'd like to see me again. What lovely moments in my life. Such heaven. After that, I started dating and grew more and more confident, more daring, until I could walk into a room, pick out the most handsome guy, and set about attracting him to me, which never took long. Eye contact is a magical potion. I was filled with a self-love that I hadn't thought possible. I wasn't Joan anymore. I was reborn. Hmm? My time is over. Am I? Is my time up?
No, Joan, keep going.
Okay. While my checkered physical history shaped my aging and deprived me of a sense of confidence in my body's strength, I resisted slowing down. It's true. I'm driven. I wish it were not the case, but all my life I've been greedy to reach the next step, place, career. That's right, greedy. In fact, a friend who read this book in its early stages wondered why I described my behavior as greedy, a negative term. Why not courageous? She suggested. To answer that question, I look back to my childhood training in Catholicism, which regarded big appetites as excessive and sinful. Somehow describing myself as greedy diffuses the shamefulness that the church would accuse me of and almost flaunts the behavior as acceptable in my eyes.
Hey, Joan, this is Dimitri popping in. I say two more, and then we'll go over to the Q&A. So you could do
Okay.
two more.
A kindness, 2020. I woke in the middle of the night to my heart banging in my chest. I'm old. My body felt old. I avoided going out, anticipated any exhaustion after any activity. All I wanted to do was rest. A a red flag waved. This was undoubtedly depression, coupled with my struggle to gracefully accept the signs of aging. I used to welcome illness, a cold or sinus infection, as relief, an excuse to rest. It gave me a legitimate reason to cancel appointments, skip visits with friends, or take a break from work. Is it laziness, as I've often believed, or is it the fact that I now prefer a slower life? I need a slow pace to write, to open my memories and imagination, to process almost 8 decades of rapid living. Reflection is far more interesting than doing chores or opening packages. I've often wondered if my falls are an indication of my unconscious need to slow down and my inability to give myself permission to do so. I can't. Now that I am physically restricted and the years continue to take their toll, I imagine my unconscious is relieved. I don't have to rush. I can rest even when I'm not sick. My body offers permission for the slow life. In fact, insists on it. And I'm going to finish with an experience that I had with my grandchildren. David called to ask about the appointment and said he was coming over with the girls, my beautiful granddaughters, to cheer me up. That they did. I could feel the depressive cloud lifting, as they always did, in their presence. Shortly after they arrived, 5-year-old Cassidy suggested a China party, a tea party featuring my antique blue and white China dishes. Elodie, too, was soon napping on the couch, so it was safe. Turning the key, Cassidy gingerly opened the hand-painted cabinet that had belonged to Alan's mom. We removed the teapot, sugar bowl, creamer, and the small matching plates for our cookies. I brought silver spoons and found a lace cloth for our table. Apple juice was substituted for tea, and we sat together chatting about our favorite memories, Friday sleepovers, our favorite place, and of course, visiting the carousel under the Brooklyn Bridge. And she reminded me in very queenly fashion, we delicately munched our chocolate chip cookies, and the afternoon passed with no sense of my visit with Dr. Leary. Oh, the glory of it. In the company of those lovely grandgirls, depression seemed to disappear and joy reigned. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Joan. That was wonderful. The leaps from the beginning to the middle to that part of the book. I always marvel at folks that have to read memoir in a succinct time because there's so much that can actually go in there. Thank you so much for that sampling. I'm
So
going to thank you. I'm going to add Molly and Baron. Everyone's giving so many loves, hearts, and applauses. It's quite gorgeous. And so now, folks, thank you so much for still tuning in with us. Now's the time where this is the greatest time when the authors go and sit at the cafe or by the bar and just start talking shop. So this is that moment where we all just start kind of geeking out and being nerds about our own writing here. We have a couple of questions, all right now, just from the staff who are just itching to say things. But please, everyone, in the comments, if you have any questions, just put something down there in the chat. I wanted to start with something a little light, and this is something that Molly talked about a little bit that I wrote down here. So she mentioned that we're all concerned with childhood as a source of poetry. And I think there's something to say about how we toy with manuscripts and we toy with poems and writing, how children wonder about the world before the responsibilities of adulthood. So can you all speak to that a little bit? Do you feel like you're kind of pulling into something from either childhood or playing when you're putting a manuscript or you're putting a piece of writing together?
Well, there's a quite a well-known book by the Dutch philosopher Johann Huizinga called Homo Ludens, humans playing. Um, and he posits play as the basis of many things, uh, the law, for instance, and poetry. And there's a wonderful chapter in there called Poetry as Play. This is a book that now has been taken up by the gaming world. But I think that the idea of playing around and playing with your lines is absolutely essential to poetry, and you see it um, even in a poem about depression.
Mm.
such as Gerard Manley Hopkins, "No worse there is none," pitch past pitch of grief. I mean, it's this uh, consummate poem about depression. You can see all of the play that's going on.
Mm.
And in some ways, that's what Joan is talking about in her memoir. In some ways, writing plays her out of her depression.
Mm.
Mm.
Spoken like a therapist, Molly.
She is.
Just a student of therapy, I should say.
Got it, got it.
I
Baron,
think,
okay,
I
good.
actually think that uh, the impulse to write does begin in early childhood.
Mm.
It's kids are surrounded by books that have words in them, by they hear in school about poetry and they learn to write poems, and it becomes a private ritual for them. They are sharing what they feel, and they are holding it to themselves.
Mm.
So I absolutely believe that it starts in childhood when we don't have any restrictions.
Mm. Mm. Excellent. Yeah,
Uh,
we're
child,
gonna go back to that.
childhood is a time of awe and wonder, where self-consciousness has not yet cut us off at our knees. And to me, poets are people who stay in touch with that. So that
Mm.
question that a child asks you, what is that? Uh, what is that like? It's a questions poets spend their lives asking.
Mm.
And, I don't think it ever goes away for a poet. Uh, it may start to go into a realm of truth seeking, but it's so different from the truth seeking that a child is after, really. So
Mm.
I agree with Molly and Joan about childhood that way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, like when we get older, we start thinking more in abstractions, but if we really think of the root word, if you've ever been around a toddler that's speaking for more than 10 minutes, they'll probably ask you why or what is that about 10 times within that 10 minutes, right? And I do think, in the more granular part of poems, I think that's what we're always trying to get at there. So that's great. So Joan, I actually have a question for you specifically then. Then thinking about the impulse to write beginning in childhood, I always think, so what separates us that do write then from folks that decide not to write, right? And thinking about it specifically, I'm thinking about how brave you are to talk about your depression in the way that you do throughout the course of this book. And you're very honest in all of your work. But with this one particularly, did you ever feel too seen while writing this vulnerably in this collection?
Um, I didn't until I was almost finished with it,
Ah.
when because I didn't know what it was going to be. It was evolving, and I thought that it would be, kind of a history for
Mhm.
my family, um, for my granddaughters, for my son, and as I kept writing, it evolved into a book and to something that I wanted to say. Um,
Mm.
I was actually missing my practice. And so as I thought about the people who I had been working with and the number of people who would be out there who
Mm.
needed to hear this, I I put my vanity aside and
Mm.
basically said, I have to tell this, and it has to be honest. I can't, if I'm going to give this to other people, it has to be as honest as it actually was.
Mm, yeah. That's that's some serious work. And I do have a conversation here that's a little more heavy. And it's talking about the metacognitive nature of the book because there is kind of you going in and out of like almost disassociating, but seeing yourself while you're writing it. But we
Mhm.
may get to that because I do have some other questions from the audience. And as the young poet, I don't want to monopolize the whole conversation. So I want to make sure that we get to everyone else. So thank you so much for that, Joan. So this one's actually from a future CavanKerry Press author, Justin Hunt, in the audience. And he's asking Joan, I admire your candor and your memoir rings, as you said, as true as I can make it. Can you speak to the role your manuscript readers played in steering you into truth and to your own process of rooting up that truth?
The what I'm puzzled over is the first point that you made um, about my readers.
Well, probably the your beta readers. So I'm assuming in this situation, like Molly, Baron, those who read the
Mhm.
manuscript and gave you feedback.
I absolutely had no pause
Mhm.
in sending it to Molly and to Baron. I knew that they would be honest. I knew it was an incredibly personal book, but it was what I had to do, and I have absolutely felt like I want to give it to as many people
Mhm.
who are suffering as I can, in whatever way I can, because I basically brought myself out of depression on my own. And anybody can do it.
Mhm.
So I sort of continued my practice in writing this book, in deciding what to do with it.
Right, right. And thanks. Thank you for that. You know, you have to give yourself credit for you practicing for such a long time because it's almost like, you know, how everything in life happens for a reason. You were waiting for this moment, right?
Mhm,
All those patience, all those conversations, it was for this moment for you to almost like face the poet in the mirror here, right?
mhm.
And see what to do. I
And
do.
I also have never used um, my patients' histories
Oh,
um,
okay.
in anything I've written.
Mhm.
My subject matter has been myself because I'm the only one who legitimately can say the things that I'm saying, um, and carry that message. Um, so, you know, my professional ethic was that what I hear in my office remains in my office,
Mhm.
and it always did.
Kind of terrible
Mhm.
Zoom.
Yeah.
No?
Um, yeah, that's great. I mean, so I'm considering here a question for the three of you all. And in terms of in line of what Justin Hunt was saying. So, you know, for all of these book launches, we ask authors for a wish list of people that they would like to read with, whether it's colleagues or people in the same realms as them. And we're luckily at the point where no one has said no yet. So we get these really intimate readings of community. So one thing that is really prevalent with the three of you is the importance of community in these readings. So, why do you think it's important to surround yourself with a community of writers like this?
I don't know whether the phrase is surround yourself.
Mm,
I think, you know, um, it's great to be with other people who understand and do the same thing that you do. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the community and that's the sharing. And to that end, there are some terrific poets in this audience. I gave them a shout out in the chat, but I'll give them a shout out, a bigger one here. Jeannie Beaumont was here tonight. Donna Gelagotis Lee, Irina Nikolova, Jane Simon, another therapist poet, Susan Jackson, a wonderful poet, and these are just the names that I saw as I'm just kind of thumbing through the gallery. I'm sure I've missed people, but just to say that poetry is an art that is usually practiced by its readers. I mean, there are some readers who don't write poetry, but very often readers do at least write some poetry because they're interested in this art. So there's already a sense of community, and I just think that that sharing, and it has a little bit of a sense of a broad body electric, to use a Whitman phrase.
That's excellent. Thank you, Molly. Baron?
You know, what I found out over years of teaching that's always kind of funny is when people show up, you know, in these MFA programs for the first time, what they realize is they're part of a tribe, but they didn't know they were part of a tribe, and the tribe poets, and it's pretty amazing in terms, and all the people I imagine this know this, that yeah, people can be together for 5 minutes, and if they have poetry in common, they got something really important in common, and they can start talking. And you know, I'm sure again, Molly and Joe could testify to this in terms of people, you know, over the years that you meet, that you have that in common, and you have something very substantial in common with one another. Poetry.
One of the things that makes this possible and critical is the fragility that we have as poets, particularly in the earliest stages. When we're with a community of poets, many of them are suffering the same doubt and the same puzzle about what this poetry thing is and where do I fit into it. It's a very, very lonely place to be as a young poet who does not have the support of a community. It's very difficult. And so I remember going up to the Frost Place and feeling like, oh my God, where have I been? This is amazing. It was amazing. The number of people, like Baron said, 5 minutes, and you know my story. And we've talked all about how we're terrified of being here. It's important.
That's excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's one thing to do it on the page, but it's something when we can bring those words to a group of folks that share that same understanding. Thank you all so much for all of you sticking around with us. We have one last question before signing off, but let's just take a moment and just marvel again at lights in cold rooms. So great that Joan, you were able to present this to everyone. And this last question goes to you, and it's from Irina. Joan, have your family and friends played a role in shaping your memories? I am very curious about the way the memory of the author of a memoir works and whether it is supplemented by memories of others.
No.
No?
No, this is me speaking. This is the important thing about this book, and I think a memoir in general, is the honesty of it, the impeccable honesty of it. And so the only people that have had any input are really Molly and Barron. They have not tried to influence me, but they have basically highlighted to me the things that they understood that I was trying to do. And that meant the world to me. I didn't, as much as I needed a crowd of supporters when I first started writing, I don't need that anymore. I like it, but I don't need it. And it certainly doesn't make its way into whatever it is that I'm writing.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Just so much. And it's the thing is you don't really understand what it's like traversing into a book when you're starting to write a memoir until you start actually writing it and you see that you have your own autonomy over that, right?
Yep.
So I would say anyone that's out there writing a memoir, just keep on writing that memoir, right? You are that memory and you are your own truth. That's wonderful. Molly, Baron, Joan, thank you all so much for this evening. Joan, congratulations on 26 years of a press and also for this new book. At this point in time, I'll ask everyone to unmute to say your goodbyes and to applaud Joan for the rest of this evening.
Raise a glass.
Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Congratulations, Mom.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
Thank
Joan.
you.
Thank you all.
Congratulations, Joan.
Good to see all of you.
Am I going to get to see all these people who are there?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Having a baby coming on.
Interview.
There we go.
There it is. There you can see everybody now. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Great.
It's wonderful,
Thank you.
Joan.
Congratulations.
Good.
Take care.
Congratulations. Really tremendous.